All right, gentlemen, welcome. It's season 3, episode 3 of the Fantasy Empire. We're excited to have everybody here, and yeah, it's there's been a little bit of news going on over the past week, boys. We've got quite a few things to discuss, so we're not going to waste too much time getting into it. I mean, we've got the latest Empire heartthrob, Matt Modica, down in the lower right quadrant there.
Hey, Matt, you took the title from me, huh? Took the mantle.
Have you worked things out with Tiger or Teen Beat yet to get the centerfold?
Not yet, not yet.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's dive right in. I mean, we got a lot of stuff to get to. We're going to do a couple draft boards. We got some news around the league, everything else. So, if we run our usual show, I'm sure we'll be pushing it time wise. So we'll dispense with the introductions and move right into Rashee Rice. So today we're going to play a new game show. The Price is Rice. The wheel of misfortune has continued to spin for Rice, and now it's become clear the NFL really wants to throw the book at him. So now it's the NFL and Rice playing let's make a deal, and we got to figure out what are we doing in our drafts. We thought the only variable was going to be how long of a suspension is it going to be. Now we don't know when it's going to start. So let's just kind of go around the horn and discuss this one. And I'll lead it off. I wrote an article on PlayerProfiler a couple days ago. I think that this later hearing for the suspension is really bad news for us because it throws everything into doubt. We don't know when it's going to start, because the Rice and the league can still come to a deal before the suspension hearing even starts. So we really have no information other than we know that the NFL was hoping to get 10 games or so, maybe more, on a suspension, and Rice was probably hoping for 4 or less. I think at this point it's probably, I would say 6 games is probably the most likely. I would even say if it's likely to be anything different, I would go a little bit heavier rather than a little bit lighter. But we don't know when this decision is going to be made. And the worst thing about it is if it goes to arbitration on September 30th, the arbitrator is not going to be ruling on it right away. Mm-hmm. So, we've got, now there's a little bit more lag time there. And then if either Rice or the NFL appeals it, now we're talking a couple more weeks. Because like with Deshaun Watson, the decision came down on like April 2nd, and it was April 18th before all the appeals were exhausted and they finally decided what. So I think it's important that, we understand that, we could be losing Rice if it's a 6-8 game suspension and it doesn't start until week 8 or so. He could be gone for the fantasy playoffs even. So I think it's, Rice is pretty toxic at this point. I think you've got to be willing to basically throw away that pick. If you're not at a point where you're willing to do that in the draft, you probably don't want to take him. Matt, what do you think?
Well, where does that start, though? I mean, we can all sit here and play lawyer and still play the guessing game that we've been doing for 2 months here and say he's getting 4, he's getting 6, he's getting 10. None of us know, and it really doesn't matter. Where are you willing to pull the trigger on the draft board right now? Everybody was taking him in the 3rd and 4th rounds the last couple months, and now he's fallen to the 6th. You
Round
guys
8.
willing to pull the trigger in the 6th or the 7th round?
What's actually crazy is it looks like his ADP on the OCs has creeped up the last couple of days. On FFPC Main Events, it's basically the 5-6 turn. The 2 primes, it's basically the 5-6 turn. So, I mean, I find that kind of odd. I thought he would have fell. I took him at the 5-6 turn on the board we're going to discuss later, but that was the Thursday night. And then that Friday morning, all that news hit Twitter. So I just find it interesting that it really hasn't fallen much.
I think what's the story with them is you get to be if you're drafters like all of us are and play some volume. As soon as he comes in that wide receiver 4 range on our builds, and that's round 6 or 7, and you could roll the dice. Where if he is suspended 8-10 games and you could still live and get by with him, maybe you come back right quick on the board and get another wide receiver 5 or something like that. Whereas, if you're missing Rice for a while in your lineup, at least you still have a loaded starting lineup in your eyes or something like that. That's the only way I could see building him. I'm not taking him in that 4th round. Players like that as my wide receiver 2 or 3. Once I have 3 receivers on my team, I'll take Rice as my 4th and roll the dice.
Okay. I mean, for me, he is the very definition of a ride or die player, right? I mean, this is what you're doing. The talent is top notch, top 10 wide receiver. Like Dan said, if they do not settle, I believe they settle. Maybe I don't know nothing. None of us know nothing. I got a feeling they settle this prior to the season. I could be dead wrong. But like Dan said, if we wait till September 30th, she is not going to rule for at least a week or 2, maybe longer. So then it's really going to get messy. And the one good thing with the arbitrator in the Deshaun Watson case, she ruled for 6 games. There is no precedent on him being suspended for 10 games or more. He has paid out the families like $1.3 million. He did leave the scene, but since then has done everything. I mean, I don't want to. I guess I'll say the word right. I mean, it's a terrible thing, and he needs to be punished for it. But at least he's made the steps that were correct after this horrific event. Yada yada. So, I mean, for me going forward, it would have to be like Chris, 7th, 8th, and I got to have those receivers. But I do have shares where he is, not my 4th or 5th receiver.
Nelson, what are you doing with it, Nelson?
I've always maintained that he should be like 6th round. I think that's his price that I'm willing to pay. And usually that's going to be some type of build where I've got 2 running backs with 3 wide receivers. 6th round comes along. He's my number 4 potentially. Mm-hmm. Or I have 3 running backs and I've got a guy in the flex or whatever. And I've got, 2 wide receivers. And he's going to be like a wide receiver 3 or a flex option. That's where I'm comfortable taking him. So I've maintained that all along. I just haven't, I've always been in drafts where he seems to, someone takes him a little bit earlier than what I'm willing to take. And I do believe that this news of him having a hearing, I think is a little bit worse than the NFL just handing down like a 4-game suspension at the start of the season.
Nelson, real quick, 4 names. You taking Rice over Jerry Jeudy?
Yes.
Travis Hunter?
Maybe not.
Stephon Diggs?
Yes.
Jacoby Myers?
Yes.
Chris Olave?
Yes.
Okay.
I agree with Nelson.
I am lower than all you guys on him. I mean, he's pretty close to my do not draft list right now. If we get some more clarity between now and the start of the season, that could definitely change. I'm not, basically, burying him completely. But at this point, I just, the risk of, not having him, because part of the deal too is, when you don't have him for like weeks 5 through 8 or 5 through 10. What's that?
Can't draft with a condom on, Dan.
Yeah, I get that, but you know what? There's other players I'd rather take the condom off for. So that's pretty much where it comes down.
Fantasy Empire.
Fantasy. They're putting the fantasy. We're putting the fantasy in Fantasy Empire today. All right.
Give me a new segment, bareback or die. Is that what it is?
I just look at it.
Right.
So here's how I look at it real quick. So when I'm drafting, as the draft moves along, the players become a little more riskier and are a little more missed than hit. Okay. That's why the guys in the 1st round and 2nd round go where they go. So I look at it as in the 6th round, there's guys that are just not going to hit, that are not going to be good. So I'm willing to take that risk and figure out. I feel like I can draft a deep enough team that once the suspension hits, whatever it is, that I can have a player replace him for that time but I like the upside of him because obviously last year he started on fire and he looked really good. Mm-hmm. So I definitely want to have some shares of Rice when he falls, and I'm going to be in on Worthy anyway. So I look at it as like
potential stack.
I missed on 6-round picks, many times through the years. So, what's another, if it's totally like a total bust, whatever, I'll deal with it.
Yeah, because we all have that dream in our minds at the draft table where we take Rice as our 4 in the 6th round, the 7th round right there. And then you get through the suspension if you draft well, which I'm sure we all feel confident that we could put together a good team, right? With some bench depth. You get to that point in the season, week 12 or week 11, and you're looking right as a playoff team. What's the advantage? You look across your leagues and everything in an overall leaderboard, and it's going to, everything looks like a lot of parity with a lot of other teams. But if you have a Rashee Rice team that you could bring in off your bench going into the fantasy playoffs, if he's available, and you have a loaded, top 3, and now you bring him in as your flex player, that could be a $250,000 paycheck right there. So, I think that's how we all draft. We want to be a little risky. And what player in the 6th or 7th round will take you over the top and give you, round 2 production? There's not too many of them, like Nelson said. So Rashee Rice would check that box.
So if it's a standalone league, does that change anything for any of you guys rather than part of a tournament?
Absolutely.
That changes my mindset because I'm looking at it, whether I'm drafting at NFFC or FFPC and I'm drafting like a main event or whatever, I'm looking for the upside. I'm looking to build that team where I don't want to take a bunch of players with upside. You don't have to. You can take solid guys that you're going to get production out of. But in the 6th round, 7th round, like I'm looking for those guys that it's like, okay, if things work out, I can tell myself the story that there's paths to this guy, being, top 5 at top 6 at his position. In those rounds, that makes a big difference, on those teams. In a confined league, especially like if I'm playing in a high dollar confined league, I'm not necessarily like looking at, like, I don't need to take on that type of risk. I just need a solid guy there.
The best thing that can happen for the private leagues, the supers, the diamonds, all the FFPC ones, everything, is Rashee Rice comes out and drops a number in that first game and let somebody else take those points and drag them up the board and not care about what the future holds and just take those points. But yeah, he'll be taking, he'll be falling down my board in standalone leagues for sure.
Yeah, I think in standalone leagues it gets really tough. Mm-hmm. But at what point would you take him in a standalone league? Is there a point where you guys are like, oh, it's probably worth the effort? Frame it in terms of round or players you'd take him before or whatever you want to do. But what do you think?
I mean, Chris named some guys in the 6th round that probably have like legit starting roles. So I'm still willing to be a little conservative at that point, but like 7th, 8th round, there's not like those guys could easily bust just as much as Rice and not be
one person I didn't mention, Nelson, with all those names, and I brought up all those wide receiver names because I think that's when it really is in drafters' heads. They're looking at those receivers and a Rashee Rice probably on the draft board. Like, do I take a guy that I know is going to be there day one, a wide receiver 3-4 type, or the upside with Rice? But the one guy I didn't mention is Jordan Addison, coming with a suspension. Go around the horn. You're on the clock in the 6th or 7th round. Addison and Rice are on the board. Who you taking first?
That's a tough one.
Go ahead.
That's a really tough one for me. I'm really getting scared about this Rice news. Wow. And maybe I still lean Rice, but I don't know. I might go Addison. That's going to be like on the clock call for me. That's really tough.
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure. Nelson, what do you think?
I'd probably go Rice. I think I can get Addison. He drops Addison drops sometimes in drafts. So, like I said, if I'm looking to in a tournament style setting, I'm looking to get some exposure to Rice. If I take Addison every time over Rice, and that's my call, I'm not owning Rice.
I think that's fair.
Fair enough.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, I think we've hit Rasheed Rice. Next thing we're going to hit is a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to be talking about Mr. Bill, Jacory Croskey-Merritt. So, should be a fun little discussion there as well. And we'll see you in a minute.
The world-famous Draft Kit is live, and it is this signature bit of content that we create every year to help you dominate your fantasy league. The most in-depth team previews you'll find anywhere, including signature trends and a lot of key stats on individual teams. Also, a 300-player cheat sheet for best ball, for seasonal leagues, individual cheat sheets from the top analysts here at Player Profiler. There's also video analysis and written analysis from some of the top minds in the industry. And we have all these new features like a Rate My Team feature, plug in your roster, and our AI tools automatically generate a draft score, as well as a whole commissioner guide. You have to subscribe to it to believe it. PlayerProfiler.com/draftkit, PlayerProfiler.com/draftkit. Get it now. Go win.
All right, guys, we're on to the hottest topic in fantasy this weekend, without a doubt. It is Mr. Bill Croskey-Merritt. What do you guys think? Can we pay the bills with Mr. Bill? Is he this year's Carson Steele? Where are we going with this guy?
What kind of comment is? I just noticed that you inserted that. I didn't even pay attention to that.
Damn.
What the hell is that?
That's a spicy meatball.
There you go.
Carson Steele?
Carson
Oh my
Steele.
God.
Does he have a pet alligator? I don't know.
That
We need to
is-
find these things out. I'm
That's
not
the
sure.
first time I heard that comp, so that's a good one, Dan. Yeah, listen, that's in play.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Lead us off. Where are we going?
For me, I have no problem following up the board. But first off, I got to give a shout out to Nelson. He told me like 2 months ago this guy was going to be the starting running back, and I loaded up, So, and it was mostly 14 to 17, but I'm still willing. I've drafted him in the 12th. I've seen him go in the 10th. Saw him last night going in like the 8th. Where is the it's too much? I don't know yet. I got to look that up. It's going to depend on, what's my running back situation. I think it might get to a point where it is too high. I didn't have a problem, in the double-digit rounds, even the early ones. But where is he going? I've seen pictures in the 6th. I saw a stream last night. He went in the late 8th. So I don't know if I'm willing to pay that yet. But it seems very real that B-Rob is out. And
Don't they just switch on the boards? Don't they just change places on the board, basically?
I would think so. I would. That's fair enough. I have 0 B-Rob, so I was not into him. So yeah, I would think that's a really good comp, just to say switch him and all that.
Yeah. All right. So Nelson, where are you at on him?
Here's the issue. So if you look at it from a game theory perspective, like underdog, best balls, like at FFPC and NFFC, online championships at NFFC, like any tournament style format that's been drafting now for months, there's teams that have them in the 15th, 16th round, 13th, 17th round, right? All in that area, right? On the back end of drafts. And now you're going to push them up in this type of format to the 8th round. It's just not it's just not logical. The only way that works, because he's got to be like high-end RB2 for you the whole season in order for that, like the math, I think, to work. Because you're going to have teams that have, like I said, with him in like the 15th round, and yes, their 8th round pick might not work out. So you can look at it that way from that theory is like, okay, I took him in the 8th round, but all these teams that have Bill, in the later rounds, what do they do with the 8th round pick? They might be toast. They might have taken Robinson, and Robinson becomes irrelevant, this season. So I see it from that perspective. I just wouldn't make a habit of pushing a guy like that way up the draft board. There's going to be other players involved. Like, I don't think he's like a world beater. Okay. So I don't think I should be chasing him up the board. Debo's going to be involved. They'll involve Rodriguez. Like, they're going to involve other players in that backfield. So that's my opinion. Like, I'm not necessarily like looking to fire him up in draft boards.
Yeah. The train left the station, like Nelson said. That's it. You know what? It was a great pick all summer in the 16th, 17th, 18th round, wherever you got him. Now you took your RB5 off of the bench and can maybe flex him in some weeks. But I'm not going to go now and pay the 8th round price on him in drafts.
And especially not for a guy who doesn't really do much in the way of receiving work.
I'll go find my 13 carries for 80 yards each week somewhere else in my 8 points. The guy's not going to do much in the pass game. That's why I compared it to Brian Robinson. Robinson caught the ball at least. You got Eckler. You got, the kid Rodriguez can play. He was the first one on the field last night. I took him last night 160th overall. Merritt went in like 88th overall.
Right.
Are we so sure that that's not going to be flipped?
Exactly that. And his upside really is Jordan Mason, right?
Yeah, I don't see the upside.
I'd much rather have Jordan Mason and then try to speculate somewhere else later. Yeah. And the other thing is with taking him early, I definitely would not want to take him early in a tournament. But what about a standalone league? Now, again, we're talking a different thing. You're not fighting against a bunch of other teams. It's just kind of, the 12 teams and only one person's going to have Mr. Bill here. So where are you guys taking him in a standalone league?
I don't care where you take players in a standalone league. if you like them that much and you take them in the 5th round, knock yourself out. Like, you take them in the 5th round. It just matters. Like, all that matters is like, you're going up against just 11 other players in a tournament format. It doesn't make sense to chase them up the board. I was in on him, right, Matt? Like a couple of months ago, I drafted him. I have, a high percentage of him on teams, but I'm not going to act like the smartest guy in the room and say, well, I'm just going to be stubborn and chase him right up the board. Like, I'm going to.
No. I hear what you're saying. My question would be then, and like Trevion Henderson, who was going 5th, 6th round and is now going 3rd round, might end up in the late 2nd. Is that too much? Like, if you believe in, I'm just trying to figure out if you believe in the player or the situation that they're in. It's more of just a game theory kind of question.
Trevion for me is a totally different talent than.
I agree. I agree with that. But like you're saying, in the tournament style, where I got all these shares in the 5th and 6th, and I've drafted them in the last week in the 3rd round. But what about other people? Like, is that something that you're going to be hesitant on?
The swap is this: if you take him in the 4th round and people have him in the 6th round, you take him in the 4th. Is your 6th round receiver or running back or whoever you take there gonna beat the guy that someone took in the 4th round in place of Trevion? Right? It's a 2-for-2 deal.
No, I get that. I think he's more 3rd round now, and I think you might see some people popping him late 2nd. I just It just seems like that train.
Get on Trevion out of
it was more of a game. It was more of a game theory question about
all roads lead to Trevion.
That's where we're at now. We're comparing Bill to Trevion.
Yep.
It was more of a tournament style question.
I hear you.
And what I noted, what I got from Nelson's answer is he's adroitly sidestepping the question of exactly where he'd take him in a standalone league because he doesn't want to reveal that information at this time. So.
No, I don't think I'm sidestepping it. I just believe this. I liked him a lot as a 15th round pick, and I thought like he was a sneaky pick a month ago, 2 months ago in best ball drafts and stuff like that. And now I look at it as 8th round. Kid ain't that good.
Yep.
Hey, Nelson, can I throw 2 names at you?
Yeah.
You're on the board, 8th round, 9th round, something in that range. You got J.K. Dobbins on the board. You taking him over Merritt?
Yeah.
I am.
You taking shit? I just lost it. The other one was Javonte Williams.
I'll take Merritt.
Okay. All right. I think that's what you're looking at. Those type of backs right there. I mean,
What about
in that
what
range.
about Charbonnet?
I'm taking Charbonnet.
Yeah, I'm telling Charbonnet might be the best bet. That RB. That guy has. If something's wrong with that foot,
I just don't see huge upside with Bill, as they call him. That's all. Just a guy, just a pick. He's the hot name now. They're clearing out the running back room with the whole Robinson, so everybody's running to Bill, and everybody wants to make that pick on a draft board right now.
I think he has some upside, though. I mean,
what's an upside? But what's upside?
But I'll say he looks more shifty and dynamic than what they've had there, and you have that RPO that plays there that can really open up the holes for him. So and I don't know, he was railroaded last year not playing. That was terrible what happened to the kid. So I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty to him, I think.
Okay.
All right, I think Slogo and Mr. Hand have completely squashed the hype here. So
a lot of our listeners right now aren't happy. We kind of crushed the Bill love.
We're here to crush dreams. That's part of what we do. So
yep.
Speaking of crushing dreams, this is the time of year where we kind of we go through the preseason. We gain confidence in players. We lose confidence in players. Who's a player you guys are losing confidence in over the past week, like since last episode? Who's really gone down in your estimation? Chris?
I feel like this is going to be a popular answer at least, but Garrett Wilson, for the Jets here, just because of what Fields is looking like. I had Wilson as a target of mine in the late 2nd round, early 3rd round. I feel like I have to push him back a little bit. I'm worried about the pass game and everything like that. So I'd say Garrett Wilson, I'm cooling on a little bit, but I feel like a lot of people in the community are on that. With that being said, last night he lasted till, I was in the one hole, lasted to me into 36, 37, which I haven't seen. Still pulled the trigger on it at the turn at 36, 37. But I think the days of seeing him in that 22 to 25 range might be over now, and you're going to see him start sliding down to the mid-3rd, late 3rd. So I'd say Garrett Wilson.
All right, fair enough. Nelson, what do you got?
I got too many players to list, so I'm not going to go in depth. I'm just going to list players that I've lost confidence in. Achane, Kenneth Walker, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Tyreek Hill. Who else? I think that's it for now. All those players.
All right. If Nelson we got to
make Nelson go last on those. If he's just going to list everything.
If Nelson's going to play that game, I had 2 guys besides Wilson. I'm going to throw out DJ Moore there as well.
All right.
DJ Moore is an interesting one. I want to let's circle back after Matt and Dan give his. Because I need to know on DJ Moore. I want to talk about that more because there's people that's a little controversial because like people see DJ Moore as kind of like a focal point of that offense. So we'll go back.
And you can give me your answer on Walker. Go ahead, Matt. You're next.
Right, Matt.
Dan?
No, Dan. I thought Dan was next. But...
Okay. Yeah, I'll say Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's not really that I've lost confidence in him per se. I just don't have the confidence in Kyler to be able to do what needs to be done to turn him into a top flight receiver. I think it'll be better than last year, but I don't think it's going to be, I don't think Harrison's going to be any kind of a league-winning pick or anything like that at this point. So I'm definitely concerned about him. And then I'll also just throw out basically I think there is a dead zone of running backs this year, and those guys definitely have me concerned. Basically from the mid-fifth through the 7th round, I'm not really interested in any of those running backs. I'd rather go a different way. Matt, what do you got?
He's pretty much named everybody. So I'll take somebody that I'm really high on, but I do have, some concerns now with Rice being suspended for a lengthy time, it seems, would be Mahomes. I'm really in on the Mahomes train. I think they were going to open it up and everything, but you lose Rice, that's a vital piece. I mean, I'm still in on Worthy and everything, but that's a guy that I did have a problem. And I'll segue it to the DJ Moore thing. Sunday night, to me, I'm really not in on the Bears except for the cheaper pieces. I thought that was great because I want to see Caleb move up. The Bills really started nobody on defense. They had Cole Bishop at safety who got burned on the touchdown, who just came back from 2 practices with a hamstring injury. So, I mean, you got to be careful. And even Charbonnet on Friday night looked great. I think that running game is going to be really good in Seattle. But Kansas City pretty much benched all their best defensive players. You got to take these things into consideration. You want to see the player do good, but there has to be some consideration in that as well.
That's fair, Matt, with the defenses. I think what we all saw on Sunday night with the Bears was Caleb making the right throw and accurate throws on time. The offense just flowed. I think the arrow was pointing up after that performance, granted that it wasn't the starting defense, but, Caleb could have been overthrowing balls and throwing.
I mean, you want a hot take? You want you want something spicy? I think Bayesian could probably lead this team better, but he never will get the opportunity and shouldn't. I think Caleb's going to be really good.
I think you know what, Matt? Crazy that you said that, because one of my takeaways from that game was I was like, if Caleb ever went down, this offense would still move and be able to move. Okay. Because Bajan's a decent backup. And that's a big thing, I think, in fantasy football. I know I touched on it last week with the quarterbacks and stuff. You really have to look down the quarterback depth chart for some of these offenses.
Look at the Lions. If Goff goes down, they're dead.
It's a great example. That's one of the top ones right there. If Goff goes down, you can forget about Amon-Ra being a first-round talent. You got to look at him as a fourth-rounder, the same way when the Jets fiasco happened 2 years ago and the Dolphins fiasco last year. All these receivers had to take 5-round hits because their quarterbacks sucked. So, look at Brian Thomas in Jacksonville. If Trevor Lawrence went down, you got a gunslinger in Nick Mullins coming through. These are things that I'm looking at this year that I really, in past years might have overlooked. But with enough quarterbacks going down each year now, it's something you got to keep your eye on, in my opinion.
All right. So how about DJ Moore in particular? I mean, let's talk about him.
Yeah. So
Nelson, what was your question?
No. So he's a 4th-round pick, pretty much in most formats, right around there. And the question is, he's been productive throughout his career. Good player. Ben Johnson's there. Someone or a couple of players have to perform, and then there's going to be players that are not going to perform. So my question to Chris is, why DJ Moore? What's making you shy away from him?
So I don't think he's a terrible pick, Nelson. But when I look at this offense and then bringing all these weapons into it, I think Colston Loveland, actually, my take on him has changed a little bit. I thought he was going to be a slow starter out of the gate here, but it seems like he's getting back into the offense. He's going to play a pretty good role in this offense. So you have Loveland. The talk of camp has been Odunze and how he's gelling with Caleb Williams, and how some beat reporters are saying that Caleb only has eyes for Odunze and he's legit their number one. Some people are high on Burden, some aren't. I think he'll play a role. There's a lot of mouths to feed here. And even though DJ Moore is still the de facto wide receiver 1, there's a lot of balls to get spread around here. And if you look at his contract and you look at the offense and you look at the way Johnson came in as a coach, immediately drafted Loveland and Burden. He's setting this offense up in year 2 to be Burden, Odunze, and Loveland. Okay, so is he really going to have loyalty to DJ Moore? DJ Moore is either going to get traded or cut in the offseason, and you know what the Bears are going to look like in 2026. So I don't think he's going to be that alpha wide receiver 1 that we've thought of DJ Moore of in the past couple of years. So I'm not saying he's a bad pick. I'm just saying I think there's a lot of 4 for 45s in DJ Moore's season this year in that Bears offense. And if you're giving me a 4th round pick, considering the fact of all the other wide receivers that are in that range, I prefer other wide receivers. If I get stuck in a little bit of a spot, would I take DJ Moore? Maybe. But I think there's a lot of wide receivers I like that are in better positions than a DJ Moore.
Real quick, because I'm getting killed on the comments about the Bayesian thing.
Yeah.
If you've been following it all summer and you listen to the beat writers and what's going on in camp, Bayesian has a better control over that offense. I am not saying he is better than Caleb and that Caleb won't be good, but I'm just talking facts of everything that's been put out there and everything that's been happening in camp. So that's the take.
That's, by the way, that's our guy Spiteri, who will be in New York. Giving a Why don't you go to the beach, Paul? Paul sits at his beach house and drafts on the beach all summer long and gives us shit. Go to the beach and go, as they say, touch some grass, but go touch some sand.
And I recommend everybody pull up Caleb.
Yep. Yeah. Wait, can I just touch on one thing real quick? Dan, your guy was Marvin Harrison. I'm surprised at that one because Marvin Harrison, I feel like the vibes are at least turning, and the vibes out of Arizona camp are more positive than negative with Harrison in year 2 and them him and Kyler gelling a little bit. I know we talk about it all the time. Kyler burnt us, but I think the vibe is going a different direction on Marvin Harrison. So
I think the vibe on Marvin Harrison himself is definitely going in a different direction. The vibe with me on whether Kyler can take advantage of that's the issue.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
And maybe I should preface this by saying I was pretty hard in on Marvin Harrison before, and basically I'm kind of cooling off to the point where it's like, I got a lot of shares already. I don't know that I want to be continue to load up here. Time to take a little break.
You sound like me with Garrett Wilson.
And then one last.
Well, there you go.
One last follow up, Nelson. You gotta give me your rebuttal on Ken Walker.
On Walker, I just don't believe that whole maintenance plan thing was part of the plan. I think there's more than what they're letting on, and I just don't like the vibe there. I'm gonna avoid Walker this draft season.
I mean, I love Kenneth Walker, and I'm really getting nervous. I got to be honest with you too.
I know he returned to
he's like
practice yesterday,
he's like 24 years old, and
Yeah.
It's
This whole
not
maintenance
ideal.
plan thing.
So it's more injury related than is what you're saying, Nelson. You're worried about the foot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to be totally out on Walker, but I certainly understand treading with caution there, for sure. How about players that you've started to draft with more confidence in the past week? Matt, what do you got?
You know what? I didn't put this down, but I would. I don't know how I
Matt, you failed the test, Matt.
But I would say like Ashton Genty to me is only maybe like a couple of running backs that should go ahead of him. I've taken him over Saquon, and I'm just going to go with the young guy in an offense I think is trending up. Ricky Pearsall, I think he's really benefited this whole camp with Jennings being out. I love the way he finished. I don't hold anything against him prior to that. The guy got shot. So there's another guy. And Tucker Kraft, who we'll talk about. I think Tucker Kraft is being slept on really, really hard.
Damn, Matt took all my guys.
I'm sorry.
Well, he named half the NFL in his
I had
answer.
3 guys.
He's just following Nelson's lead. Chris, what do you got?
The answer here has got to be Ibuka. He's flying up draft boards. He's only going to keep climbing with the Jalen McMillan injury news here. That doesn't sound good. A severely sprained neck. Already ruled him out for week 1, which, I mean, geez.
He said weeks, I heard too.
Say that again?
I heard he's going to be out for weeks into the season.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you're already getting ruled out for week 1, that means it's not stopping there, and you're going to be out a while. We know Godwin's going to get pumped. I'll tell you that now for free. And now you're looking at it all of a sudden, all summer long, everybody was like, wow, there's four targets in this offense with Kate Otten making 5, and now it's down to Evans and Ibuka. So round 5, Ibuka is here to stay. You can bank that top 60 player off the board. Some people are going to drag him into the 4th round. You can mark that for sure. He'll be the Trevion Henderson at the wide receiver position starting now. So Ibuka is the answer there. And I got one other guy that I'm sure maybe you guys don't agree with, but Chris Olave is a guy that was off my draft board 2 months ago. I said, there's no way I'm drafting Chris Olave. And I've come full circle, and I just think as a wide receiver 4 in that 6th, 7th round range where he's going in a lot of these drafts, you could do a lot worse with a target monster, a wide receiver 1, in an offense led by Kellen Moore that's going to be fast-paced. They want to play fast and always down multiple touchdowns probably each week. I think I could fall into 10 target games with my wide receiver 4, so more confidence in Olave on the draft board nowadays.
Fair enough. All right, Nelson, what do you got?
Calvin Ridley is one at the wide receiver position. I just think that he's in for some heavy targets in that offense. And Pacheco looked good to me, and I'm back in on Pacheco because I just don't think
it's an interesting
good one.
Pacheco is kind of that one.
I think Dan froze up there.
Did Dan freeze that? Yeah. I mean, he's
so.
back now.
Yeah.
Yep.
But with Pacheco, he looks good to me. I don't really have a ton of respect for like Hunt and Mitchell and, the young pass catcher, Bouchard, too small to really take too much of workload from Pacheco. And when he was healthy, he was basically like a 3-down back. So, I'm probably back in on him.
You know who's cooled a lot in that backfield? You don't hear about it anymore. Eli Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
And I have all the Eli Mitchell round 18, 19 shares as a dark horse. Those probably are going in my garbage can. But I thought he had a chance to beat out Kareem Hunt, be the RB2, and be a Pacheco injury away from being the starting running back. But you don't hear much from Eli Mitchell this summer.
Yep.
My only concern with Pacheco is if Kareem Hunt is like that short yardage goal line guy, and they kind of gave him some money. It's not a lot of money, but it's money that they wanted to keep him. So, but yes, everything is trending up for Pacheco. I will agree on that, but I'm just throwing a little,
Listen, I had Kareem Hunt on teams last year. I was
terrible.
I was in on Hunt, not Steele, but I'm just saying that it was ugly, but like he was getting the job done, getting you those like 8 to 12 points, but it was bad. Like he's washed to me. So
yep.
I just look at it as like Pacheco is the short yardage back there.
Yep.
A lot of good interaction with the listeners today. So shout out to all you guys. Keep them coming. We appreciate it.
No doubt. So I would, for my confidence player, I would say Ibuka, but it's really not possible for me to draft him with more confidence than I already have been. So that's the bags have been packed and they're continuing to be packed. So I'll throw it. I got a couple guys in it's in a trouble spot for me. 3rd round, T. Higgins and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm starting to gain a little bit more confidence in those guys where I'm losing confidence in like a Garrett Wilson and Tyreek Hill. I'm getting confidence in those guys. I think T. Higgins, I hate taking the number 2 wide receiver for any team this early, but if I'm going to do it, it's going to be on a team like the Bengals where it looks like they have no defense whatsoever, an absolutely fantastic quarterback, and as long as T. Higgins is, healthy, then he's getting the ball as well. So I don't mind that much. And JSN, it just kind of comes down to, I don't know who else they're going to throw to there. And it does seem like the offense is really kind of working. And, so JSN could be a real target monster. He could have 150 plus targets. And if that happens, it's going to be wheels up, even if they're all like 8-yard gains and fall down.
My only concern with JSN, and I'm with you, Dan, I've gotten more confident, the player I've always loved and drafted, is if that end of the season, Jalen Milroe comes in for the fantasy playoffs.
I don't see that. I don't see that happening. I've heard that before as well. Jalen Milroe sucks.
He does, but what if they're like 4 and 10?
Yeah.
And they want to see what they got. I mean, that's the stipulation, but I agree with Dan. I've gotten more confident with him.
Scotty the King Angle's in the group chat right now. He's a Seattle Seahawks guy. Why don't you tell us what your opinion on Milroe is there, Scotty? You're in the Seahawks beat reporter room.
Yep. I get Torrey Horton and all that too, but he's not going to be taking over for JSN. I mean, JSN is going to be he's the 400-pound gorilla in that wide receiver room.
Well, I feel better if Flock is the clear backup. I'll tell you that right now. We've seen them connect on that Monday night, right? So that's a much better world to live in.
I love that. So, Scott says Milroe's not coming in. Have a good preseason. But
there you
go. Locke is a clear backup. So,
attaboy, King.
Well, the one thing we saw him do the tush push, so maybe that screws over some Seattle running backs if they do have that package in play for the season.
Mm-hmm.
I pissed off.
Don't you talk bad about my Seahawks.
I actually see it the other way around. What if they become a run-heavy team and the run game's working and you have a lot of 4 for 60 games for JSN?
Yeah, Nelson, that just goes back to my point that I always say. Every team wants to be run-heavy, but how does JSN only catch 4 balls in a game? There's nothing else in this pass offense. I know the ghost of Cooper Kupp is out there. JSN is just going to have so many double-digit target games, in my opinion, as the focal point there. So will he have a couple clunkers? Yeah, everybody does, but I just see his floor being pretty safe this year.
Yeah, at this point, I'm taking him over Garrett Wilson, no problem.
Okay.
All right, Dan, where are we hitting next?
Right. Well, next, I think we're going to do a quick ad break, and then we'll come back and we'll get into a couple different draft boards. So we'll be right back after this. All right, and we're back. Let's start off with a FFPC board, Matt. Why don't you kind of take us through this board? I'm going to put it up on the screen here and just kind of tell us, what's your team, what's your thought process, and everybody else can look at it, and we'll kind of discuss it, who we like, builds who we like, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, my thought process here with the 12th pick, I do a lot of wide receiver heavy teams or hero running back teams. I wanted to try and take advantage of the pass-catching running back, which is becoming extinct in the NFL. And HN had, 87 catches last year. With Jonnu out, unfortunately, HN's dealing with a calf injury right now, but this is prior to that. And with Jonnu out of the picture, I think 100 targets is possible. I'm not saying that's going to happen. Genti does not get enough credit for being a pass-catching back. As a sophomore, last year he didn't need to catch any passes. He was pretty much sitting at the half. But as a sophomore, he caught 43 balls for 590 yards with 5 or 6 touchdowns. And in the Chip Kelly offense with their head coach. And I think it is kind of a little under the radar ascending offense in Las Vegas. And I just wanted to go all in on that with Henderson because I think he's going to catch a shit ton of balls as well and try and get an advantage there. I took Wilson. This is before the weekend. And I even said it last week on this pod that I was worried about Wilson. and I still take him because I do this every year like Charlie Brown. So that was my idea of getting a 1 there. After what happened last weekend, maybe I go Tet or Worthy at that spot. So I was looking at there, and then at the 5-6, this is the Thursday night before the news dropped Friday morning about the NFL. Wanted to drop that hammer. I couldn't help myself with Rashee Rice. I took him there. As I mentioned prior, I think Pearsall is the number 1 wide receiver in San Francisco. The chemistry with Purdy looks real. He looks like somebody that can really break out. So I had the 3 running backs. Now, taking Addison at the next turn is interesting. If Rice isn't suspended until later on in the season, then that works out really good. If he is, then it's more of a problem. But I think, Addison's a guy with like 133 touches in 2 years with 20 touchdowns in 30 games. So, and he has contingent value if something ever happened to Justin Jefferson. And the quarterback, with Jefferson missing time, has been really keen on him. And Tucker Kraft, I mentioned. This guy's been like one of the best yards after the catch guy. He's being slept on. There's no true alpha in Green Bay right now. Maybe Gold in a sense to that. Maybe Jalen Reed finally becomes a player I believe he could be. But Tucker Kraft has real opportunity here. And to wrap it up real quick, the Jaden Reed, another guy I'm always going to be big on, 150 touches, 19 touchdowns, 1,700 yards in 2 years. Keon Coleman has been the best player in the Bills camp every day, it seems like. He has a chance to be that wide receiver 1. They screwed up. They traded out of Worthy. Even worse, they passed on Ladd. And this was the guy, from everything I heard last year, that Josh Allen handpicked, the guy he wanted. So in the 10th round, I'm going to take a shot there. And then I closed it out this morning with taking Tajay Spears. I mean, I know he has the high ankle sprain. Out here in Tennessee all off season is all you heard was how thrilled they were about Tajay Spears, and they wanted him to have an opportunity this year. End of the 11th, 12th round, I'll take that shot, even if he misses a game. He might not even miss a game. I haven't really seen them go heavy on a running back. If they trade for B-Rob, maybe that changes. And I got Dak here. I think Dak's thrown the ball like 650 times. So that was my thought process.
All right, gentlemen, what do you think? What do you think of Matt's team? Any thoughts there? Any teams you like?
Matt, what kind of mood are you in? Can I critique your team?
Oh yeah, of course.
All right.
Forget about what mood he's in. Give him shit if you don't like it. Nelson.
All right. So
we're not catching feelings over here.
Yeah.
so we got Achane, Reed, and Spears in a walking boot. We have Rice and Addison potentially getting suspended. Like that, to me, like that's just like the definition of risk.
Achane was not hurt when I drafted him.
Yeah.
He was not hurt when I drafted. He would have not been my pick.
I got you. Okay.
I would have went with Nico Collins there. So
All right, my bad. I thought this was last night's main event.
No, this is a slow main that started last Thursday or something.
That to me, like, there's a lot of risk.
Of course,
on this team, and especially over at FFPC. I think you have to start off fast in order to make the playoffs there. It's a shorter season, so that worries me. And then, listen, I'm open-minded to starting 2 running backs. On that turn, I just can't take those 2 running backs and pass on Nico, Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas, Drake London. I gotta take one of those receivers as my number 1. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with taking at the time, not hurt, Achane and Genty, because I did like both. But man, even though I still like them, Achane I'm a little cooled off on though, obviously because of injury. But at the time, like going backwards, rewind it. I can't pass on one of those receivers.
Yeah, but I also have a lot of teams that are wide receiver heavy, and I'm weak at running back. So it's
And then the other thing that
the love affair with the listeners is over. 1 week. That's it.
Sorry to cover you up there, Chris, but I felt like it was worth it.
And then the only other thing is like, shit, I can't pass on Joe Burrow in the 6th round. So like that would be like the other one that sticks out to me. With that, I have Burrow. I've got Burrow with Lamar and Josh Allen. Like I know he doesn't run, runs a tiny bit, but really a pocket pass. I just look at that guy is the one guy that could like throw for 50 touchdowns this year.
Yep, fair enough. Yeah, and the thing is with these slow drafts, things change over the course of a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and some things that look pretty good early on, start to look a little bit tougher. Like I'm worried about the, Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison, Jaden Reed could all be out to start the season for all we know, and so could Achane, which is kind of a, hey, it's not breaking in Matt's favor. I can see the path to success for this team, but it's just the way things have broken, it's gotten a little bit tougher. So,
That's definitely true, Dan. And just to go back to Thursday night when I was talking about Garrett Wilson on the text chain, everybody on the text chain was like, Garrett Wilson's going to be fine. And everybody loved Garrett Wilson. So it's funny how, that game happened. And Nelson's like, I'm out on Garrett Wilson. I changed my mind. So I got those
I'm not
texts
out on him, but
no, but I'm just saying I got that text over the weekend. So we'll see. It is a high.
Matt's coming with receipts.
It is a high. Well,
I don't remember what I texted somebody an hour ago. Matt's like, last week you texted me this.
Thursday night.
I son of a bitches. I was on the clock. And you told me it was okay.
I already took him, but I would say I'm concerned about him. But I also still think he could be a really good pick. So we'll see.
This will teach you to listen to us, Matt.
Before we go too far down the rabbit hole, I'll point out teams 1 and 7. I just you can't get away with a running back room like these guys build now. It's not 2022 anymore, in my opinion. You want to go all wide receiver heavy and everything, and then you want to start off your running back with your RB1 being RJ Harvey, or your running back room being Montgomery and Javonte Williams with a Quishon Jenkins, who knows if you even see him as your RB3. Like, you could be looking at a 9 and a 4 at your running back positions on a weekly basis here. So I need some juice in my running back room. I don't have a problem if you get your RB1 early in the first 2 or 3 rounds and then lay off a while and then try and put your RB2 through whatever together. But you got to give me something that I have a base of 15, 20 points weekly coming in at my running back position. I can't be taking, shots as my RB1. So those 2 teams stuck out to me as builds that I just can't go with. Although
I'll say something for Team 7, though. I don't have a problem starting Harvey and Dobbins week 1 at home versus Tennessee.
Yeah.
They both, I put them in my starting lineup. I'm not starting Johnson. I would start those 2.
And Sampson's likely to be the starter in Cleveland, I would think, too.
Yeah. Listen, I love his first 4 rounds. You got the best tight end. You got 3 good receivers. I like it. I'm just talking in terms of the running back room.
I don't understand why Harvey hasn't moved up. With Henderson moving up, I don't get why Harvey hasn't.
I mean, the coach said the starters aren't going to play, and then RJ Harvey showed up and played. So, I mean, that's got to be a little bit of a concern, no?
Okay, rookie year for Alvin Kamara. The first 2 games, he barely played. They had AP, they had Ingram. They got rid of AP. Ingram was there the whole year. He was what, RB5? I mean, you're in a Peyton offense where the running backs are going to get like 100 to 130 catches on the season.
Yeah, I don't mind RJ Harvey as the RB1.
I know all you guys are RJ Harvey guys, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he's gonna not be a productive player. I'm just saying if he's my RB1 on my fantasy team, and I gotta sit through September with him giving you 5 points a week or 7 points a week.
But here's the difference.
You better make sure that your receivers are giving 25 each across the board, and your quarterback the same thing, because you're gonna have to make up a big hole.
Here's where I'll stick up. I think Team 7's team is actually, he's got Bowers and Hawkinson. Mm-hmm. This is a tight end premium 1.5. He's 3 receivers of London, Higgins, and Worthy off the bat. I don't think and he's got Mahomes. So I think he's got a really good team, actually.
Okay, good team. A good team. I like the way Team 1 get Kittle and Tyler Warren, 2 tight ends that I really like. They're both similar in that way. I'm just talking about the running back rooms on these 2 teams. I just can't do it this year. Mm-hmm. Okay, I love their receivers. I love their tight ends, quarterback, all of that.
Well, here's the question for you, Chris. Like last year, all these top end wide receivers got hurt. Every running back, it seemed like, especially the older guys, all stayed healthy and crushed. You don't see any dynamic where that changes neither.
Do I see a dynamic where
everybody, it's basically come back to where it's heavy RB again. Heavy RB is the new trend. Now,
what I see when I sit back in fantasy the last couple of years is there's too many passing offenses that are getting the ball spread around to pass catchers, and the elite RBs are a big separation from what's down the board, in my opinion. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing. I'm making.
I can't predict who's going to get hurt and not hurt.
Yeah, well, just the mayhem that happens. And,
sure. But there was mayhem at the wide receiver position last year.
That's what I'm saying. So now, what happens if it's if it's
what happens if it flips?
I can't predict what position's going to get murdered at. No,
my point I was trying to basically make was, I just see a boomerang. Like everybody went in on 0 RB, then 0 RB got smashed.
Sure.
And, everybody seems to be going in on the heavy running back again, which I'm not saying is wrong. I mean, I drafted 3 running backs in this. Most of my teams are going to be, like Nelson said, how could you pass on those receivers? Because I have plenty of teams, plenty of mains with the 2 receivers start, or the Bowers and the receivers start. So, you have to have.
What I'm saying is, I think
I
think teams need to be more balanced nowadays.
Okay.
Between the receiver and running backs.
All right, you guys, let's talk about Team 6.
Nelson, go ahead. Nelson, what'd you have?
So I see both point of views. So I agree with Chris and I agree with Matt, because I look at it as that's the trend, because all the older running backs stayed healthy and it was wide receivers that were getting hurt. And what Matt's saying is, what if it reverts back to the last few years where it's Armageddon at the running back position, and the teams that started with like stud elite wide receivers and they have good tight end play, and then they kind of pushed back running back, and then you're getting like the backup and the handcuff guy, and now you're starting them. You have you're ahead of a lot of those other teams that are suffering because a lot of the top end running backs got hurt.
Yep.
I mean, just look at the second round. You got 2 guys that last year, one was drafted in the 4th, 2 years ago was drafted in the 5th, and they're up there. So opportunity happens.
All right, I'm begging you guys. Let's talk about Team 6.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about Team 6.
Team 6. I see one glaring mistake there. I'd have taken Jaden Daniels over Chuba Hubbard, and I think if he does that and then files the Mayfield pick and takes ETN or somebody like that in the 9th, that team looks really, really good to me.
Dan, I agree there.
I like that team the most. That team stood out to me the most.
But I would have taken like Warren or Ingram or a tight end like that over Diggs.
I mean, but we're talking more about builds here than players. Let's keep that in mind.
Well, no, I'm talking about.
I like the players he took.
Yeah, I'm talking about the tight end in this tight end premium league.
Yeah,
I know he only had 2 wide receivers, but if you could have got a Tyler Warren, if that's your guy, and Evan Ingram and Njoku, that's where I would have went. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But otherwise, I do like the team.
Yep.
I'm being more. I agree with Dan. Like the way I look at it is, I'm taking T. Higgins over JSN. That's just preference. And I'm not too worried about passing Jaden Daniels in the 4th. But passing Burrow, I gave Matt shit for passing Burrow.
But yeah, time out a second.
Yeah,
you were talking about Daniels. This guy rushed for 891 yards last year, and for like 3 or 4 games, he really didn't run after that Eagle game where he got hit. I mean, this guy has a clear path to like 1,000 yards rushing.
Yeah,
So,
but I don't need to have him in the 4th round. Like I don't.
He's going in the middle of the 4th. How is that a bad price?
I'm not saying it's a bad price. I'm just saying that, like, to me, that I don't need to have him there. Like, he doesn't stick out like a sore thumb to me personally.
I mean,
I might have taken him there, but I would have assumed that Burrow would be gone by the time I get to my pick in the 6th. And, you know, the fact that he wasn't, you know, so now he's kind of missed on 2 guys. But still, a good build. You know, I like the McCaffrey Brown. And then you got Hubbard as that RB3, which is totally fine. I would have gone a different way, but you know, JSN, Ridley, Diggs, Judy, Golden. I mean, I think you got to be able to come up with 3-4 startable wide receivers out of that pretty much every week. So yeah, I like that.
What did he do at tight end, Matt?
On McCaffrey.
Yeah,
he hasn't taken a tight end yet, and that's my thing here. Like at the Diggs pick,
that's a weakness for sure.
He had whoever you like. It doesn't have to be a specific player. Warren and Ingram and Njoku, even a Kraft, if you would. But you had an opportunity there to really,
Yeah, I don't know if he still hasn't taken a tight end and put a collection of some of those tight ends in the, in the 13 to 20 range, which obviously he didn't. I might rescind my statement on being the favorite team out of everything. I was just looking more towards the first, 8-9 rounds of the names and stuff in the build.
Yeah, you can't be having 5-point games out of your tight end in this format.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. All right. Anything else on this board, or should we move on to another?
Let's keep it moving.
All right. Sounds good. All right, so this one, it's an NFFC Primetime board. It comes from Nelson. So, Nelson, why don't you take us through what you got going here on the board? You can tell us who your team is, or we can try to guess, whatever fun you want to have with that, and tell us what you're thinking here.
Shit, I always like the guessing game, so I'll let you guys try to guess what my team is, and then I'll tell you. If you guys are right.
Team 3 is my favorite team.
Okay, here's the thing. Ready? Team 3 is not mine, but it's a very good player that I respect.
I was going to say 11. I'm sorry. I was going to – if I had a guess, I'd say 11. I was going to be 3 or 11. It's not the Bowers
McBride team, just so you guys know.
Yeah, it's definitely not. My guess was either what do you call it? My guess was 3 or 11, like I said.
I'm with Chris on 11. I think that's where he went.
That it's 11. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do I know my Nelson or what?
You do. High five.
Brian Thomas give it away.
Is that early for Brian Thomas? I know.
No, I said did Brian Thomas give it away? No, Brian Thomas could go 7th.
The build gave it. The build gave it away. That's the build and a lot of the names.
I figured you guys look down at the defense, saw Patriots.
Yeah,
that's a giveaway.
I didn't even get that far down, but I like it. I mean, obviously you got Kraft, and you got Tootin. I do like that. That you got both of them, because I do think it's going to flip at some point.
It's funny because once I made Thomas Gentry pick, I kind of knew I was going to go wide receiver heavy, and then it switched, and I actually ended up going running back heavy when I took Pacheco, and then again if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but I'm just going to keep drafting ETN there at that spot. I think late 8th round, I'm willing to take. I think he's got upside in that offense.
Team 1's a disaster. I'm just looking around the board. Team 1's a shit show. They're dead money.
Rice, Godwin, and Reed that's tricky.
Yeah. Did he go on auto pick? Or,
No, no.
That's some like Modica type risk there.
Modica's looking at that team. He's like, "What are you talking about, Chris?"
Yeah.
Modica's drafted 0 Godwin.
That team 10 with the Bowers McBride, I don't know how I feel about that. I just think
I don't hate it. I won't do it, but I don't hate it. The way
he won't do it. He's not going to do it in a main event, but I don't hate it.
Like
I don't hate it that somebody else did it.
You could have just took Bowers at 15 and most likely got McBride at 27 and still slipped in a Brian Thomas, Nico or London. You know?
Yeah.
So,
but if I'm not looking at the players, that build isn't, it isn't terrible. He got his 4 wide receivers and 2 running backs. So, and you are getting a major advantage. But again, I'm not doing that.
It's just hard to put a tight end in your flex if it's not tight end premium.
I'll keep this moving and say this. I think this year, again, I know I've said this before, team 3, team 9, okay? I think more than ever you could get away with this type of build this year because receiver runs deep into 6th round. You could still come out with 2 bell cows and then still get 4 good receivers. So the fear with receiver position, and it goes back to my point with what I was saying a little earlier with like, I think a lot of people are starting to see fantasy, how I said with the ball getting spread around offenses a lot more, whereas it used to be real top heavy, in the first 2-3 rounds with your wide receiver ones. Now it's getting spread around where if I told you I had a wide receiver room of a Ricky Pearsall, a Dunze, and a Xavier Worthy, things like that, you can't tell me that on a weekly basis that the difference is going to be so drastic from, a team that has wide receiver heavy starts. It's just, it's just the way I see it now. It's getting spread around too much. So if you start off a team with those 2 20-point a week running backs that catch the ball, and then add in a whole bunch of solid receivers that could give you 15, I still think you could get away with it this year. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I think that's why you're seeing that particular build come back this year more than it has in the last 5 years.
I think if you do it, though, you have to commit to the 4 wide receivers. You can't.
That's kind of – I should have said that, and it's a great point. Now, if you want to tell me, is it easier and harder to do on different sides of the board? Yeah, I think right now, if you're on the left side of the board in the top 4 and you start off with 2 running backs, you could bang out 4 solid wide receivers and know you'll be able to get that. I think it's more dangerous to do it on the right side of the board from picks 9 to 12 to get away with that. Just because, I just think it's tougher. I think that the board shrinks around picks 60 to 65. If you're in a wide receiver heavy room, you might run out of ammunition by the time you get to the back end in rounds 5 and 6. You might be looking for your wide receiver 3 and 4, and they might not come. And then you really don't want to go dip down into those round 8, 9, and 10 receivers and move them up because I don't think they belong there in the top 72. I think there's a real big gap outside the top 65, 70 at the wide receiver position than what you see later on. So you don't want to get stuck in that position. So that's what I'm seeing right there.
I got one question here. How high is too high for Matthew Golden? He's obviously somebody that's been moving up. Reed has the injury. Again, as I said, there's been no alpha in Green Bay wide receiver. So he's another guy I expect him to keep, moving up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. That's a receiver that was going in the 80s and 90s, and he probably keeps on moving up into that 7th round range. I think it depends on every draft. If there's receivers there, if you're in a wide receiver heavy room, guy like Golden is going to start moving up, is going to be forced to move up because you're going to run out of receivers in that top 72. So all depends on the draft board that you're in.
If Christian Watson could have stayed healthy in Green Bay, he would have, look at what he might have been able to do. I mean, we saw him stacking some good weeks together, and I think Golden has a similar opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chris, you said you're back in on Olave Golden. Where are you going?
Olave.
Okay, that's what I would do too, but I was curious.
Mm-hmm.
That's close for me.
I mean, not for nothing, but
I like both.
Golden really seems like it's very comparable, but seems like the Xavier Worthy of last summer.
Yeah.
So
I like them both. Have a lot of shares of both.
Mm-hmm.
I think you got to go both of those guys over.
Anything
Addison.
else with this board that we see, guys? What stands out to you?
Yeah, team 9, looks very nice. I think we kind of talked about that a little bit, but really like the way they put that team together.
Yeah, I mean, team 3 I thought was really good. The only thing I would have did was I probably would have got a receiver where he took Tyrone Tracy because he had the 3 running backs already.
Right.
And I would have got my 5th. But I really like that team.
Yep, fair enough. All right. Anything else, guys?
No.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So we went through a couple draft boards. I'm just curious, are there any parts of the draft that are giving you guys the most trouble right now, and what are they, and why is that? Chris, this was a question you were kind of asking a little bit in the chat last week, and we never got to it, so I wanted to circle back around to it. I thought it was a good question.
Is there a part of the draft that is? I mean, I think if you're wide receiver heavy early, and those names come off the board, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, guys like that. With Omari and Hampton starting to fall to the end of the 3rd round and sometimes the 4th round now, if you start off receiver and you're in that, picks 7 through 12, right? Mm-hmm. You're falling into a spot where what running backs are you taking in the 3rd round right now? What 3rd round running backs are you easily pulling the trigger on now that everyone's starting to sour on Breece Hall? Hampton's going the wrong way. Ken Walker's going the wrong way. James Cook is moving the right way, but still not into that range of, being a locked-in 3rd rounder. Where do you go to get running back help if you start off wide receiver this year, in the 3rd round? What do you do?
I mean,
go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
For me, at the end of the 4th round, I'm probably taking Harvey. I think he has that upside to really.
Okay,
he's a guy
that's a spicy meatball.
But I don't think he's.
Can I give a rebuttal to that?
Okay.
Can I give a rebuttal to that? You start off receiver, and then you find yourself in picks 25 to 30 range, right? And the running backs have all gone in the top 24. Okay. Now, my mind automatically goes to this. If I'm in that back half of the 1st round, my 4th and 5th rounds in the late 40s and early 50s is prime wide receiver territory. Now, there's a reason why I want to be in the back end of the 1st round in that range, is because in the 4th and 5th rounds, I'm getting 2 really good receivers. I really don't want to go in there and get a running back, okay? But if I come out of the 3rd round with 3 receivers and I'm receiver, I head into those 45 to 55 overall range, and I can't really go receiver again where it's prime territory. So where are you pulling the trigger on running back? A lot of people, I think, are just pulling the trigger on receiver in that 10 through 15 range because those are the best picks right there, okay? And then they're finding out down the road, holy shit, I got to take a running back that I really shouldn't take here because, I need one. And the receiver position is looking good.
I would put it this way. If I knew, I think the board's been changing, but like Pickens really, I think is more closer to the early 4th than where he was going in the 5th or late 4th. And if I want to go receiver, say I go 2 receivers, I take McBride in the 3rd, early 3rd. He's there.
Yeah.
At that 4th or end of the 4th, early 5th, I got a good shot on RJ Harvey, who's an upside back, and then I could still get other backs. So one of those picks to me has got to be a running back that can give me this upside in that play, and I can still start off 3 or 4 wide receivers.
Isn't that kind of a commercial though for just taking a wide receiver or a running back in the second? Instead of going
Dan,
wide
that's
receiver,
what
wide receiver.
Okay, but would you be opposed to starting? Say RJ Harvey, you got an early 5th.
Okay.
Would you be opposed to having you have 4 wide receivers, Harvey, then you get say a Jalen Warren and a Jordan Mason.
And my running back room is RJ Harvey, Jalen Warren, and Jordan Mason.
And you have 4 stud receivers. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
I know and I think that's where we differ, Matt, because that's a Modica type draft as opposed to a Vaccaro type draft. I can't do that this year. You can, and it's different ways of drafting.
So, Chris, I'm with you that like the 3rd round is what's giving me trouble.
Yeah,
in
I think it's giving everybody trouble.
Yeah.
There's a lot of question marks. Like I don't. There's a couple of guys I like more than others, but I don't think there's like obvious picks outside of Lamar Jackson and like Josh Allen. I think there's ways where like you start your draft however you want, but like in the 3rd round, you want to take you don't want your 3rd round pick to bust. You take one of those quarterbacks because outside of injury, those guys ain't busting, and it opens the door for having like big ceiling games from those guys too. So I'm struggling because outside, I think Jacobs, when he sneaks into the 3rd round, is very solid. Marshawn Lloyd getting hurt again, I look at it as like Jacobs is in for a huge workload again this season.
Can we do this with the premise though that Jacobs goes 23rd or 4th overall with Bucky?
Yeah, we can.
I'm just setting that scenario up with that big tier of running backs are off the board in the top 24 or 25 or 26, whatever, and you're in the 9 hole, the 10 hole, and you miss out on that whole huge cliff. So,
all right, so let's play that out.
Yeah,
I'm starting to. Because again, I've been thinking this through because the 3rd round is what's giving me trouble. Mm-hmm. Kyren Williams, I don't think Hunter and Corum are a threat to him, especially with him signing his contract and everything. And all that guy does is he always finishes as a top 7 fantasy running back, and they love him at the goal line. So he's gonna get those goal line red zone touches. So I think Kyren is very unsexy, but a very solid pick in the 3rd round. I think the quarterbacks are solid, or you're just going to go ahead and just take, a wide receiver there. Those are really
hope that they're solid enough to give you wide receiver 2 or 3 production there.
Yeah,
and
I'm not.
So everybody's out on Hampton in the early 3rd, like 3-4. You're not taking Hampton.
I'm not taking Hampton in the early 3rd. That me personally, I'm just not. I want somebody because if I take Hampton, I look at it as okay, I should have taken Genty. Give me Genty over Hampton, and then I'll take T. Higgins, and hopefully T. Higgins can play Nico or Drake London, close, and that's the trade-off I rather have the Genty T. Higgins than the.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Chargers. Harbaugh, Roman. I understand the injury is a big deal, but this is a kid they took the 20th pick overall. That's draft capital for a running back. That is, I don't know. So I'm not saying. But
I'm surprised George Kittle hasn't moved firmly into the top 36 in that 3rd round, just because there's so many question marks at wide receiver. The running backs are clearing out, like we just talked about. Unless you could get some help and get a Kyren or Josh Jacobs to, be in that range. But Nelson hit on it. I really think Allen, Lamar, maybe even Hurts live in the 3rd round in Vegas and New York. And Trey McBride will live there just because people are going to say, instead of me forcing a wide receiver here in this 3rd round that I don't love, If they're in, that, like I said, 25 to 31 range like that, let me get the advantage at tight end or quarterback while I have it here, And
there's a lot of wide receivers with question marks. We talked about it.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, Tyree, Marvin Harrison. Dan, is sketchy on Marvin Harrison. Like, you look at all those receivers that like typically go in the third, like they all have question marks. Devontae Adams, veteran, solid guy, but the Stafford injury, like now you're like, now I'm hesitant on Adams. So to me, I'm looking at it trying to get a clearer picture on what I want to do. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, if I really want a running back and I started wide receiver, I think Kyren is just super solid.
Well, here's an answer to Chris's question. If you really believe in Pacheco and you go 4 wide receivers and whatever, you can get a Pacheco if you're really thinking he's a 3-down back in a really good offense.
Matt, there's always answers at the running back position and that thing. I'm just saying, I think there's a huge cliff, a huge drop off at the running back position.
No, obviously, but you're making the trade-off that it's the trade-off.
Yeah.
Do you want the elite receivers? You're getting like Brian Thomas, Nico Collins, so whoever you think it is, JSN in the third, and yada yada.
Well, let's talk about the different. Let's talk about different draft boards and where we're drafting, back end, front end, right? So let's just say NFFC for right now, and you're drafting in the back end. I have no problem starting Amon-Ra and Drake London. Let's just say that's your start. Okay. Can we all agree? Like
Nelson, slow down there.
One?
You're in the 9 hole. Let's do it like that.
Okay.
You're in the 9 or 10 hole. Go ahead.
All right. So you're in the 9 or 10 hole, and you start off whatever your flavor is: Brian Thomas, Neighbors, or Amon-Ra.
Yeah.
Can we all agree?
Yeah.
We're good with that.
Receiver.
It comes back around. Drake London, or let's say Nico's there, and we take one of those. Can we all agree? You're starting off with 2 legit number ones on their offense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So now in the 3rd round, T. Higgins gets pushed up. JSN gets pushed up into the 2nd round. Okay. And now we're looking and we're saying, and let's just, for the heck of it, let's just say that Jacobs goes and like all the running backs we would consider in the 3rd round are gone. Okay. And you're looking at McBride, Lamar Jackson, Kyren Williams, or one of those sketchy wide receivers, or you just push up a receiver that you like. That's the question. Right?
Nelson, but here's my thing, not to cut you off, Nelson. I'm trying to paint the picture. Basically what you said is exactly was my topic, but I'm trying to take the running back out. I'm trying to say that 22 was Jonathan Taylor, 23 was Bucky, Jacobs, and Kyren went 25 or 26 or 27. Yep. And now there is no running back for you as an option. Okay. So
Trevor Henderson.
Put Kyren in the situation. Okay. So yeah, Trevion. I know. Okay. So now you're receiver, Nelson, with no elite tier of running backs. You're looking at Hampton, Trevion Henderson, and so on and so forth. Now what do you do?
That's what I'm saying is those are your options, and I'm saying that Lamar Jackson is as safe as it comes. That you just take the elite quarterback that outside of injury is not busting, like almost a guarantee, and you're also, it's not like you're just taking blah 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 safe, top quarterback. He's got big ceiling upside games, right? That he can win your week for you in a head-to-head match. So I'm taking Lamar and just take that safe choice rather than like a questionable receiver or a running back I don't like.
Nelson, perfect. You got Amon-Ra, you got Drake London. You made the decision to go elite quarterback. You got your number one guy. You got Lamar at 28, 27, 29, whatever you want. Okay? That's the scenario I'm painting now. Now you got to go on the long wait and you got to come back in the late 40s and early 50s. You got 2 elite receivers, and you have an elite quarterback. Now, knowing you and a lot of us, we don't want to take the foot off the gas here because now we got an elite wide receiver, 2 elite receivers, and you're staring at a bunch of good receivers as options where you're falling on the draft board, right?
Okay.
Are you going to go right back to the receiver room or receiver, or what running backs are going to be? You're putting yourself in the corner at the running back position is what I'm saying. You know, you want to get into that spot in picks 44 to 55 where you could take all these receivers that are solid receivers that could all be either wide receiver 2s, on your fantasy team. They all have that upside. Okay. Yeah. But if you go and say, I'm going to pass on those receiver names and build out this team with their strength and just start taking these running backs with hopefully potential upside, aren't you shooting yourself in the foot? You know?
I think you are. I think you got to go receiver there, you know?
Okay.
Hammer it.
So that's my point of the discussion was, when do you pull the trigger on running back? Now, Matt, a guy like Matt is like, I'm fucking guns blazing. I'm going to push running back. I'm going to come back with another 2 receivers.
I'm not opposed to taking Hampton early. I know everybody's like
70s.
running from him. Everybody's running from Hampton. But
Yeah.
Elite quarterback, Hampton, and McBride are all options in that early third for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the 4-5 turn, if there's 2 really good receivers that I really like that fall, which I think is not going to happen once we get to New York, things are going to tighten up.
There aren't going to be the receivers. I'm looking at this board from the 2 prime times. You want to have your receivers because it's getting you're praying Calvin Ridley's there, like the JMOs. If you're really in on DK,
Calvin Ridley's not going to be there. Pickens.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Those guys are all going to get pushed up.
So then you're fine with Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker as your RB1 in that range, because if the receivers in that 45 to 55 range get pushed up, well, some of these running backs are going to start sliding down, which I've been seeing, like you guys said, in a nightly basis in drafts now. I got a Kenneth Walker 48 overall share, or Breece Hall 46. Like, these are the guys that are slipping backwards. Everyone's a wide receiver whore. They'll get moved up a little bit, but you got to go into these drafts, and the point of the discussion is comfortable with a lot of these running backs, which Nelson, you said you're out on these guys. You already mentioned Walker. You already said I'm out on Breece Hall. I don't like these guys. So are you going to start your running back room off with?
There's one guy he's in on.
This is what I'm doing, right? This is what I'm doing. If I start off with Brian Thomas or Amon-Ra with Drake London, and then the 3rd round I take Lamar, I'm taking RJ Harvey in the 4th round, and I'm taking Zay Flowers in the 5th round.
Okay.
That's exactly how I would build that team.
Okay.
I like it.
Well, Nelson gave his answer, so he's got his running back.
But I don't think those great receivers are I mean, there's still going to be good receivers there, but I think that's going to really try to fuck up.
You're always going to be fine at receiver, because even the receivers that go in the late 50s and 60s now, they can always bring them up. There's too many receivers that I like in that 36 to 65 range that I'll be fine at receiver no matter what side of the board I'm on. I just think you have to focus on the running back position and know which running backs you're going to be comfortable with and what type of build you're going to have them in.
Yes, but like a guy like you, Chris, you're going to do your fair share of prime times. And I'm sure you're going to have a couple where you double running backs, you double wide receivers. So it's, you got to just, play that build. It's going to change. And, like I said, I drafted 3 fucking running backs in that last one. There's some I don't draft a running back till round 5.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't think we're having this discussion if we don't have the ridiculous health at running back that we saw last year. Never mind, the teams kind of refocusing on running back. That's one thing, but the ridiculous health of the top running backs off the board, I don't see that happening again. And that kind of gave us a little bit of a angst about taking these late round running back prospects, but those are exactly where drafts are generally won. In most years. So, I don't really have a problem with just, if the room is going to continue to give me wide receivers, I'm going to continue to just take them until the point where it kind of turns, and now all of a sudden I'm gonna start collecting up running backs while everybody else is scrambling around to get their receivers. So
I was just answering Chris's question, like, where do you take running back? That would be like the one guy I would push up if like Henderson didn't make it to me in the middle or towards the end of the 4th round, right? In NFFC. And then if it is receiver that's there's a good receiver I want, I'm going to take him in the 4th. I'll take a receiver in the 5th. And now I've got 4 wide, very strong receiving crew with Lamar, and then I'm gonna paint it green, and I'm gonna go Swift, Pacheco, Connor, all those, Jalen Warren,
Dobbins later on,
right?
All those guys, and I'm just gonna try to take as many of those guys as I can, and hopefully get 2 playable ones.
Dan, to your point, the most comfortable drafts that I've built were when I've had 5 monster receivers through 6 rounds. Just because that once you get out of that top 60 now, while everyone else is chasing receiver and going yellow and yellow and yellow, you're done. See, I'm of the belief nowadays where if you got the 5 monster receivers in the first 6 rounds or 7, you could fall asleep. You could forget it now. Because guess what? If I make another pick at my wide receiver 6, he better hopefully never sniff the field for me. Okay? I got 5 monsters, and one of them's got to sit on the bench, and that's good enough for me. And then, like Nelson says, as right there in round 7 through 15, I'm painting green the whole time.
With a little blue.
I got to
touch
slip
of
my
blue.
quarterback and tight end, but I think you could do that this year, especially at the quarterback.
No, you already have Lamar, though. You have Lamar already on this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, the board is giving you these tight ends at ridiculous prices, like really good, possibly really good tight ends. Like Evan Ingram, I think, is the wide receiver 2 in Denver. Everybody's like, who's the wide receiver 2 in Denver? I think it's going to be Ingram. I think he's going to get loaded up with a bunch. Warren, if you believe Warren's the next great tight end. And Joku Kraft. I mean, and Loveland. I mean, right there is 5 guys I named that you're getting really good prices on.
Yeah.
Right. And there are some guys going later too. I mean, like Freiermuth to me is going so ridiculously late. And, somebody's got to get all those middle of the field targets from Aaron Rodgers, and
Freiermuth you can have in the 20th, Dan, whenever you want him. You don't have to worry about that.
Right. That's a point, though.
Any draft in Vegas with me, he's yours in the 20th. You don't have to worry about me.
I'm not going that far on my tight end.
Back end tight end 1. And you know what? If I'm beating you at the other positions, I can live with that.
Okay.
Listen, if we believe in the Cowboys offense, then Ferguson
Yep.
Yeah,
is
Ferguson's
another
a good
guy.
one.
I think there's a lot of solid tight ends.
Yeah.
That's another
worth a
thing that's
shot with.
changed. That's what we spoke about, things that we warmed up on. Man, oh man. 2 months ago, I hated the tight end position for fantasy outside the elite guys. Now I really like the tight ends that are after the top 100. I have a nice collection of a lot of them that I'm fine with.
There you go. All right, gentlemen. I think we got ourselves a show here.
I think so. Good job.
It's looking good. Yeah. So, want to thank everybody for joining us this week. Thanks to everybody in the chat. The chat was absolutely lit today. Really enjoyed it.
Yes.
Obviously we have a hard time getting to a lot of the questions in the chat, but we appreciate you guys taking care of each other in there and answering those questions for each other. I saw a lot of good answers going on there too. We love the feedback though. So hit the like button. We really appreciate that. That helps us out. Leave a comment, give us a review, whatever's appropriate for the format on which you're consuming this show. We really, really appreciate that. On Twitter or X, whatever, I'm gonna try to drop these draft boards where if you're listening to the show on Spotify, you can at least take a look at the boards we're talking about, give you a little bit better of an idea. But we appreciate you hanging out with us. And if you got ideas for topics for the show, shoot us a DM or ask us, pretty much in any format you can get a hold of us. We don't make any promises, but we love to hear them, and we just might use them. We like great ideas as well. Mm-hmm. So we thank you all for being with us today, and we're going to get you out of here. Get out there and be drafting like a champion.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.